Hi there, and thank you for joining me today. If you're a returning visitor, I really appreciate your continued support of this channel and being part of my journey. And I hope that today I'll be able to add value to your own personal experience of soul development, if you like. And if you're new to the channel, I say welcome. Thank you for your visit. Hopefully you'll be a returning visitor as well. So if you are new to the channel and you don't know much about me, there are some videos there on the welcome to the channel that gives you a little bit of my background. Today, coming into 2024, I feel compelled to share some information for you. And part of this was motivated by me developing the playlist for angels, because I wanted to share with you a strategy from the blessings angels so that you can maximize the potential of angelic magic, if you like, going into 2024. And I realised that as I do this, I thought initially it was going to be a simple thing, but no, I thought I've got to give you some background here. So I've got to explain to you how I came upon angels. I think that's a start, and then give you some background on what my understandings are of the angelic kingdom and working with angels. So some things I won't be sharing because they are my personal and really beautiful sacred experiences. I'll never disclose any of those because they generally involve other people who've shared these experiences, and they are just so deeply personal and deeply beautiful. I worked out a long time ago now that my life has been one of extreme highs and extreme lows. And this is not because, when we talk about extreme highs and extreme lows, quite often we can be, I think in modern society, we can leap to the idea that this was about bipolar disorder or something like that. No, it wasn't. I've had some really extreme experiences in life that have probably, for want of a better word, they've not been great. Okay. So obviously surviving abuse and family violence and that kind of thing. This is what I mean by extremes. They're not experiences that every person has, but for those people that experience them, they are the extreme low points of life. But then what I've also realised too is it's through these really deeply emotional experiences that I have, because there is a balance in life always, that I have equally, by equal measure, had the most amazing, beautiful spiritual experiences that include angels and what other people might refer to as miracles. And they are so incredibly heartwarming that I feel completely and utterly blessed, especially when I revisit them for the purposes of sharing this information with you. Just to add a little emphasis to the depth of the experiences that I've had, before I consciously began my pathway, I used to make jokes with my friends. I'm very human, very human, that before I was born, I must have thought I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. If there was such a thing as a divine plan, this is what I, once I started learning about divine plans, it was like, did I think I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof before I was born to have agreed to this stuff? And then other times, well before then, because we all talk about karma, whether or not we're spiritual. You hear these words bandied around, I hope the karma truck arrives, that kind of thing. Well, I used to turn around and say I must have been a complete a-hole in a previous existence to have to deal with all the stuff that was thrown at me. This is before I started experiencing the wonder, if you like, of spirit. Now, part of my blessing includes the fact that some of these miracles, I'll call them miracles, were shared with other people. There were other people that were witness to them, and that helped me to really solidify my belief in what was going on, because it's, if other people are sharing the experiences, you can't argue with it, right? Anyway, I was extremely resistant to anything to do with angels right from the get-go. So I will be telling you how I actually managed to shift past this resistance. I'm also going to, I think, potentially, I'll see how this video goes. I might actually speak about how I had these wonderfully amazing experiences and then how I drew back and I disconnected myself. So just because we have these amazing experiences and the connection of angels doesn't mean that we don't go through a period of abstinence. That becomes our free will and choice, actually. But I can't say that I did it terribly deliberately, but I did. But either way, I'm going to talk about the better part of the journey, okay? And I'll finish up, because it's just life gives you challenges. All I can say is really there were very, very hard days. And I do believe that during the times where I felt that I was disconnected from my angelic support team, I never was. Once you've connected with them, they never, ever leave us because their love for us is unconditional. And to tap into that unconditional love, that definitely offers us comfort on the darker days when we're feeling alone and isolated, and even in some instances abandoned. But I would come back to that there is truth in that saying, that on those really dark days when you think that you've been abandoned by your divine support team, you never ever were. It's just really seriously during those days they are carrying you on their back. So the way the story rolls is that basically I had attended a meditation group, and my first meditation group I wasn't aware of anything to do with spirituality as I later grew to experience it. But my first meditation group, I actually ended up going out of body and thought I was going to die. And then I learned that that was actually about what was the whole point of spirit was actually, or spiritual behavior was to escalate and raise and expand our soul and to connect with the divine. Now, all of this back at the time were words I didn't really fully understand, but what I did understand was the feelings of what it felt like, and it actually felt really good to be out there. I can tell you that it was a really nice buzz, and because I was going through such difficult times, I found it attractive. And I hadn't given thoughts to angels back in those days. They weren't something that we talked about. We used to talk about connecting to the beings of light, or light beings of the highest order. This is just another term really for angels, I actually believe, looking back in hindsight. But anyway, by the time... Oh gosh, gee, I'm sort of skipping along here. Okay, so what I used to do back in the day was I would ask my guides, because I was seeking actually to develop my connection to my guides so that I could trust my own instincts, not repeat patterns, that kind of thing, and to live a healthier, happier, brighter future than that which I'd previously lived through, having more recently left a violent relationship. Anyway, where I'm going with this is I used to that end, I would ask my guides to direct me. There was a local bookshop. There was no facilities. It wasn't like there was psychic circles to speak of or anything. But I used to ask my guides to direct me to books that would help me to expand my understanding and awareness as part of my own personal growth and development. And so consequently, I used to go down to the shop, and what I would do was, believe me, ask and you will receive. I used to go down to the bookshop, stand in front of the books, close my eyes, put my hand out, and let them guide my hand to the book that I needed for my highest good. So what I did, the first introduction to what, that angels might be something more than just a pretty painting on the wall that you find in museums, was actually through a book that I purchased from the local shop. And I found the concept a little much, I must say. The book was written in about the 1940s, and it was a Westerner living in India who was the author, and it was in the fiction section. And anyway, this author was writing about his experience of an Indian Brahmin or something like that has turned up in his dream state, definitely a sage of some form, who's come in and tried to explain to him the process of life and death and spiritual growth and all the rest of it, because this author apparently had a lot of questions the same as I did. Now, I can honestly say that I remember, and I was quite patronising in my own way back then, thinking, well, that's a pretty story. If it makes people feel better, then that can't be a bad thing. But I did find that a lot of the content was just too outlandish for me to be able to take on board as real, and that included concepts such as angels and divas, little winged fairies and stuff like that, because I was obviously too logical and rational. Now, I can honestly say that I've read that book about 6 times now, and each time I read it, it tends to make more sense. So that's just a little bit there. And then after I bought this book, then I started to have a couple of interesting events, and I'll tell you about those now. So because all of this happened so long ago now, I'm actually not sure that I've got things chronologically in order as I speak to this on the video, but it's all interrelated anyway. I think it was after buying the book that I ended up getting a Reiki III attunement done, and that ended up being a miracle in itself, right? I'm not going to go into that too much, really. Suffice to say that I had been told by a Reiki teacher I wasn't ready to do Reiki III, and it would cost me, at this time, we're talking about, probably 21 years ago now, it would cost me in the vicinity of about $2,000 to get the attunement done. And I was, I suppose, wise enough to walk away from that question, because I hadn't been asking if I could get an attunement. I'd been asking how much it would cost if I wanted to do it. And then I sort of processed it, and I thought, well, that's a bit of a judgment on this person's part, this Reiki teacher. I thought, one, I wasn't asking for an attunement because I felt that I wasn't ready. And then it raised the question, was she judging me? So then I put it out to my guides that if I was meant to do a Reiki III attunement, the universe would organise for this attunement to come to me in a way that I could afford at the divine time when I was ready. Now, this is where it gets fantastical, because within about 2 or 3 weeks of me putting out to the universe and thinking I wasn't ready to receive the attunement, I actually got a phone call from somebody saying there was a visitor coming to the little town that I was living in that was prepared to offer me a Reiki attunement for, I think, about $250, as compared, by the way, to $2,000. And that to me seemed like a miracle in itself. I was a bit broke at the time, but I thought, yeah, I'm going to pay for it, I'll do it. Because I thought, if the universe has delivered this to me at this time, then I'm meant to do it, especially after what I'd put out the week before. Now, the relevance for me bringing this up is because I hadn't met the Reiki teacher before, and when he was doing it, he was a beautiful soul, actually. Went into the room, we had a bit of a conversation, then the process started. And during it, he fumbled. He kind of lost his confidence in the middle of it. And he apologised to me, and he said, I'm really sorry about this. He said, but I don't know how comfortable you are with this. He said, do you see spirit? And I said, sometimes I see spirit, because that was how it was at the time. And he said, do you see the spirit of the gentleman here in the room overseeing me do this process? I said, no, I don't. He said, there is an Indian man in the room. He said, and he is absolutely scrutinising me to make sure that I do this properly. And he said, and I find it a bit disconcerting, actually. I thought, wow, that's interesting. Ooh, I feel all goosey just repeating this story. But anyway, so that was an interesting thing for me to live through. That was the next stage, I guess, before I connected with angels. So I hadn't got to the point of angels yet, though. Okay, I hadn't even started considering them. We're getting there. So this person that had made the judgment call about me with the Reiki III, she was actually newly attuned to Reiki III herself. So you may as well say she was a new teacher. She was still evolving. But she also had a little shop locally, and I was helping her out, she'd said to me that she was struggling financially, and one day she asked me if I would mind looking after the shop for her while she went home and made some soaps, because she used to make homemade soaps and salad in there. So I said, yep, no problems. That meant I was down there for about 4 hours. I was absolutely bored to tears, I might add, because there wasn't a lot of customers. So while I was sitting there looking for something to do, I found a book that was slid under the counter, and it was actually this book here. So I do recall clearly rolling my eyes and thinking to myself, oh my God, no, she's not into angels now, is she? She is seriously ungrounded. But, I did that whole patronising thing, oh, let's not be judgmental, if that's what makes her feel good, all of this kind of stuff, because I was logical, rational, grounded and growing. Anyway, I knew that I didn't believe in angels at that time, but I was really bored and the book was there and I had nothing else to do. So I started reading it. Now, as I started to read the book, I thought, I can understand why she likes this book. It's a bit on the warm and fuzzy side. It's a feel-good type of book. When she returned to the shop, I actually hadn't finished it. I've got to say, it's not a hugely intense book. There's not a lot really that's in it, but I'm one of these people, if I start a book, I've got to finish it. I've got to read it to the end, even if it's not a good story or if it's one that I'm not into. So either way, I asked this lady if I could borrow her book so that I could finish it, and she refused me. She said no. I thought, well, that was a bit mean, as you do. I thought, very mean. I'm now going to have to go and buy this book just so that I can finish the story. So I went along to the local bookstore, where by now I was quite reasonably familiar. There were two bookstores in town. One was the one that had the unethical people in it, and the other one was just your traditional bookstore that didn't claim to be spiritual or anything like that. Anyway, the guy at the local bookstore, he was quite familiar with me by this time, and I've walked in and I said to him, did he have a copy of the book? I gave him the title, Angel Inspiration, and he said no. He had a check. He looked and he said, no, it's completely sold out. And did I want to order a copy? And I said, yeah, all right then, please. So he got one of his assistants to go and put in an order for me so that it could arrive, and she came back to say there's none left. It's been sold out globally. It's completely out of stock. All right. So I thought, well, how irritating, as you would. What do you mean it's out of stock? From what I knew, this is quite true, it had actually only been released. It was a brand new release, and it turned out that it had sold out within about 2 weeks of publication globally. So I asked him what the process would be now, and he said, I think they'll be doing a reprint. He said, if they sell out this quickly, they normally do a reprint with 6 months. And then he said, do you want me to back order it for you? I thought, okay, then all right. Haven't really got a choice, have I? So I says, yeah, all right then, no worries. He goes, we've got angel books, tried to flog me a couple of other ones. I was like, no, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in angels. I don't believe in angels. I just want to finish off this book, as you do. So that was that. All right. Now, I've got to say, while I was in the shop, his assistant was phoning up people and sending messages to people to try and get me a copy of this book. So within a week, I get a phone call, and it's the bookstore, and they say, we've got an angel book here for you. And I went, you told me it was all sold out, as you do. I said, you told me that book was all sold out, that it's out of print. And he goes, yeah. And I said, so you've got an angel book for me? I said, it's not the one I ordered, is it? And he goes, well, no. He said, but I thought you might like it. And I said, well, no, I wouldn't. I said, because I'm not into angels. I don't even believe in them. And he said, so you don't even want to come up and have a look at the book? I went, oh, for goodness sake, as you do, because this is what I'm like. So I go, oh, all right then. I'll come up and I'll see you. It's time for me to get a new book anyway. So I go up to the store, and I'm walking around looking at books on the shelves, because the angel book that he called me up about really wasn't on my radar as being a priority. So I'm walking around the store, and he comes up to me and he goes, oh, shall I get that angel book for you? And I said, no. Oh, all right, go and get it. And he brings it out and he gives it to me. He hands it out to me. And I said, that's the book I ordered. That's the one that you told me was globally out of print. So he then said to me, this is the bizarrest scenario, he said, because when this book arrived, he said, none of us knew that it was coming up. No, but he said it just arrived in the box. So obviously somewhere along the way, I was meant to have this book. Now, I just want to throw something in here, because what somebody had told me after this is that when we are, as part of our divine plan, meant to have something, that there's, whether it's a deck of cards, I don't know if this is true. Right? I'm just saying this is what somebody told me. If it's a deck of cards or if it's a book or whatever, that ISBN on that book was meant to come to me. This is the answer they gave me. Anyway, back to the story. I still didn't believe in angels, okay? But I took the book home, and at the end of the day, I perceived this as to be the first case of a miracle, but I hadn't quite worked it out as a miracle at that time. I have... to be clear, I have bought other books by Diana Cooper, but I'm sorry to say this, they don't all particularly resonate with me. This one did, because it offered me some strategies and tips that I didn't actually recognise as being important until probably, I don't know, maybe another 12 months' time. But I did buy the book and I did finish it. So, as I said before, by the time I purchased my Angel Oracle deck, which these are what I call my specials, okay, so I want to acknowledge this deck, which is a product by Kimberly Maroney, and I'll talk about her in a little while. But by the time I got this deck, I still didn't believe in angels. And at the same time, I'd still been doing that meditation and trying to raise my vibration and connect with my guides and all of this kind of stuff. Now, at the same time too, because I was living in a small town, as I said before, there were two bookstores in town. One was the bloke that was very down to earth, not into airy-fairy stuff apparently, so he said, until he was into it. And then there was the other people that were supposedly spiritual and, high vibration, which actually I stopped attending and having anything to do with, because I questioned a lot of their activities and believed that it had gone into a space of being harmful, okay? But having said that, this is one of the reasons why I will be doing a video on how people can find themselves a good teacher and how they can identify if that teacher goes off the rails, because everybody's growing all the time, remember? So anyway, I'd reached a point where I'd told myself that I would never ever, right? Oh my God, honestly, some of the things that I've done in my past. Either way, I would never ever be setting foot into their store again, and I would never ever be taking a penny from my wallet to put into their cash register. This is because I felt there was so much ethical and moral conflict going on in that store. Anyway, long story short, I'm walking up the street. I was a bit distracted, and before I knew it, I saw their shop coming up. I knew that I was going to have to walk past it, and I did that little thing where you're busy, your mind's somewhere else, and you think to yourself, like, oh my God, I hope they don't see me when I walk past, because I didn't want to be false and insincere, because, obviously being authentic and transparent, having an integrity and that kind of stuff is important. And I thought if they came out and said hello to me, I would feel compelled to be polite back to them, whereas I felt that was a bit false. Anyway, long story short, I've said to myself, I'm never going to darken their doorway again. And as I've walked past, it's kind of like I didn't realise my thoughts were somewhere else, and I found myself actually inside the store, standing in front of the bookshelf, looking at this set of cards and thinking, that's a pretty deck. And then, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in here. And I better get out before they see me. So I've scuttled outside the door and I've started down the road again on the footpath. And this is one of those moments where you are guided in such a way that you cannot deny it to yourself. So I've scuttled out down the shop or down the street a bit, and I've probably only got 10 paces, and then I found my body spinning around, and I've gone back into the shop, and I'm standing in front of this deck again, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness me, my guides want me to buy this deck. And I thought, obviously they're pretty intense about it, because I do know guidance when I get it. And I looked at the price of it and I thought, because this is many years ago, I thought, $75 for this? You've got to be joking. I thought, I'm not paying that for a box of cards. Like, what on earth are my guides thinking if they're even going to try and insist this? So with that, I've walked out the door again and started off down the street. And then I have found myself turned back around and back in the shop and looking at them. Now, if we talk about resistance, I can tell you there was no love and light within me looking at this deck of cards to start with, because I was pretty cheesed. I was looking at them thinking, my guides really, really, really want me to buy these, and I really, really, really don't want to buy them, but I know that they're telling me to. And as I was having this whole internal process of, I'm going to have to come up with the $75 because they're not going to let me get out of this shop. I'm going to have to pay it, right? From behind me, I started to hear somebody laughing, and it was a guy that was in the shop at the counter, and he turned around and he just said to me, you better buy that deck. And I looked at him and I go, He said, I've seen you now. He said, I saw you 3 times. He said, they want you to have that deck. You can fight it, but you need to buy that deck. And I went, yeah, I know. I was sort of coming to that conclusion. Long story short, I bought the deck against my better judgment at the time, with as much resistance as I could manufacture, thinking to myself, I don't even believe in angels. I don't know why you're making me do this. And as I've walked out, really completely, totally with a lack of grace, stomping down the road with my angel blessings under my arms, thinking to myself, this better be worth it, right? This better be worth it. I thought to myself, well, I can tell you it was. So, with respect to Kimberly Maroney and this particular deck, once I'd cracked the box open and I started reading the book, it actually almost gave me a headache because the language is very fluffy and I found it difficult to understand. And also, there were elements of it that I found a little uncomfortable, but thankfully, Kimberly does actually acknowledge that, we can. And she gives a strategy on how to make using the deck comfortable for all of us. She's actually a Christian reverend. So I found references to Christ a little bit much because I'm more of the creator, eternal self, higher self, all that I am kind of person, as opposed to using the word Christ and God, But what she does, and which is what I do too, is that, angelic energy and energy is for everybody, regardless of the faith that you are. And if a name or a descriptive word is uncomfortable for you, you can adapt that to your own comfort levels, right? Replace it with something that you feel comfortable to use. So anyway, that's how I did it. Now, what I did manage to work out at some point in time was that using Diana's book, I learned the art of invocation. Just, I learned more than that too, but I also learned how to speak and invoke angels, right? With Kimberly's Oracle deck, I learned how to manifest miracles, I suppose, for want of a better description. So I also do believe that being a skeptic was an absolute bonus because you go in without any expectation whatsoever. You just whatever. So what I used to do was I would use the cards and I would refer back to this book and I would follow the prompts. So in fact, because I got such a headache out of reading the book at different times, I mean, what does that tell you anyway? Closed mind should tell you that's what I was dealing with. What I would do was I would scan the book and find the instructions, which would, for example, it might say, call with your heart, all of your heart for X or Y to angel so-and-so or whatever. So I would do that and I would throw myself into the activity of doing. And consequently, it did not take very long at all before I started to see the results of my actions and where I saw miracle after miracle. And they might be mini miracles. Some of them were bigger. I'm not going to talk about those because they are the sacred ones. But some of them I'm quite comfortable to share, which don't necessarily fall into the miracle category, but they certainly were exposure to supernatural events. My children and I saw all sorts of wonderful things. And one of the memories, I had a good laugh actually about this when I was preparing the video. One of the first types of things we used to see was actually what is referred to as an angelic light shower. And I had a room at the back of the house that I was renting out to another lady. And because obviously I was raising the children on my own, and she was a lovely person, if she was back, she would say to me, look, why don't you go off and have a rest and I'll sit in the lounge room with the girls and I'll brush their hair and I'll do the pretty stuff that, that kind of thing. So it was really good. It worked very well. So quite often what would be happening is I would go into my bedroom, which was my sacred space, about the only place in the house I managed to have any privacy. And I would then figure I would take advantage of the opportunity to try and draw some energy to myself, reinvigorate myself or whatever. So it was not an unusual occurrence. Actually, I better describe this house to you first so that you can get a picture of it in your mind, hopefully. So it was a very old house. It was built like in the 1900s, back in the days when the houses were wooden and they had panelled ceilings and they weren't very well solid structured. So this is what we're looking at here, right? So anyway, I would be in the bedroom. It happened more than once where I would start doing some energy work, if you like. And then all of a sudden, the first time it happened, it was just hilarious, I thought. It was like a mini tornado has come flying through a closed window up. So through my bedroom window, through the closed door, through the passageway, around the corner, up through the lounge room where my children and this lady are sitting, through the kitchen area, and then out through the back door. Now, It was incredible because it was electric. I'm not going to give too much information, but suffice to say, it was electric. And the sensation always brought joy and excitement, I've got to say. Although, after a while, my friend would be banging on the door saying, "That was you again, wasn't it? You know, you did it again, didn't you? I don't know how comfortable I feel about all this." And I mean, it was still laughter, you know, where it's like, well, it wasn't me per se, but gee, it felt good, didn't it? Yes, it did, but it's weird, you know, this was the kind of thing. But it was a lot of laughter and it was good fun. So yes, I started to believe in angels after I got my oracle deck through my personal experience of miracles. And at the same time, I hadn't at that stage developed my personal connection with my guardian. Okay, and that became a burning desire for me. So by this time, I understood that a person actually didn't need to meet the idea of being a perfect human, radiating the peacefulness of a saint to be able to connect with the angels and their guardian, right? This is a product of humans, okay? And I also understood that there would never be a better time than the present to dedicate my life to expanding my soul to be the best person and human and soul that I could be. Because I understood that the angels already accept us, warts and all. They have unconditional love for us. So I figured if they could love me, the least I could do was accept that I was perfect imperfection in the divine mind, right? And that I could work towards improving and developing myself. So that I could be the best mother, I could be the best whatever it is, you know, because I have this whole thing of striving for personal excellence. Now, this is not necessarily a case of trying to be better than anybody else as it happens. In fact, I think if my ego was being motivated, or, you know, my desire to be perfect or the best that I can be was an ego thing, it was because I kind of equate the fact that if we are trying to be the best of anything at any given time, then at any future time, if somebody turns around and says, your best wasn't good enough, you can honestly speak from your heart without a shadow of a lie or doubt or anything like that. You can turn around and say, you know, I'm sorry, I'm genuinely sorry. But I did do the best that I could. And you're not deceiving anybody. You might have failed to meet your own expectations or other people's, but I knew that I would be able to look myself in the eye with honesty and say, I tried, I gave it my all. Okay, so if I failed and I wasn't good enough, then I was able to be at peace with the fact that it was between me and the Creator that I failed to live up to my own expectations, right? And also by striving to live to these values, I was striving to live by my own authenticity and integrity, and it included having care and regard for those people around me. So just to be clear here, I'm not saying I managed all of this, okay? I'm not saying I did it well. I'm just saying that's where my head was at and these were my aspirations. And if only life was so simple. Anyway, what I used to do as part of attempting to connect and develop this personal connection with my guardian angel, was that I would spend each night, every night I did it for about 4 weeks, I would lie on my lounge room floor after I put my children together. I'd meditate, I'd set the room up and I'd try to connect, right? And would do the invocation, do the whole lot, and I'd start the process and absolutely nothing happened, just so that you know, not a thing happened in 4 weeks. So this particular night, after 4 weeks of it, I was getting pretty ticked off about it. And I had a friend who lived about, 700 kilometres away from me. One night she phoned me up just as I was setting up the room and ready to go. I used to call it starfishing in the lounge room. Anyway, my friend called me up. She goes, "Oh, what are you doing?" As you do. And I said, "Oh, nothing. I'm just going to go and do a starfish." Right. And she goes, "What's that about?" And I said, "Well, if you really must know," I said, "I'm trying to communicate and connect with my guardian angel." Now, hats off to this particular friend, because I have since found out that she thought that I was going insane, actually. And she was trying to be a good friend to me. She didn't want me to feel alone in my insanity. So she turned around and she said to me, "Oh, that sounds like fun," because she wasn't into angels either. She says, "That sounds like fun." She said, "Can I come with you?" And I laughed and oh no, I think she said, "What's involved with that?" And I said, "Well, this is what you do." I said, "And then you end up lying on the floor like a starfish, like what I do." Very sarcastic, dry sense of humour. And we were laughing about this stuff. I've got to say, there was a lot of laughter involved. And anyway, the bottom line is we kind of agreed that we would give it a shot. If the universe saw fit, that we would travel together, that we would go to Archangel Samuel's temple. It was a Monday night. That was, according to one of these books, supposed to be when his energy was running high. And we were going to give that a whirl for what it was worth. And then, because we're sarcastic, we turned around and said, and if the angels saw fit, it would be great if they could take us to the Akashic records, or Akashic records, however you pronounce that, so that we could have a look at our future or anything that was relevant. Now, where it's hilarious in hindsight, and even now, is that we basically looked at the clock and we went, oh my God, look at that. It's 11:30 at night. Jesus, if we're going to do this stuff, we better be doing it soon, because it'll be Tuesday morning at this rate. So we have turned around and says, okie dokie, let's go now. Let's just do it, right? So we did. There was a lot of laughter. And what I will say is that, so we're talking about a time frame from 11:30 at night to actually 11:55. Basically, I've gone and laid down in my lounge room. She's laid down in hers. And I had this incredible experience that she was present for. And so we know, I'll run through the story. Okay. So there was this incredible experience. And when I came out of it, I was able to see the clock and see that it said 11:55. And all I wanted to do was phone her up and say, do you remember? Did you see it? Right? Because you were there for it. Okay. But I thought I can't, because I don't want to interrupt her. She might be sleeping. Plus, we've got children that get up the next morning. So I managed to hold on to myself and not call her. What she did was, around about 6 a.m. the next morning, she said to me, I'm sorry to call you so early. She said, I just can't hold on any longer. She said, but do you remember what happened? And I said, yes, I do. Do you remember this? So then we did this whole comparison. I remember this bit. Do you remember that bit? Do you remember this bit? And then it was one of the things that I will share with you. I don't think she'll mind. She's not named anyway. Is I was able to tell her what was coming up in her future, but she couldn't remember mine, which was a bit irksome, I might add. So for those of you who are interested in connecting to your own guardian angel and to raising your vibration, to doing this whole align your vibration with that of the divine, I will be putting up a video on how to connect with your guardian, okay, and to solidify that connection. That's coming soon. Anyway, in regard to going back to this video and my own angelic experiences, as I said before, I can't quite remember the chronology of everything that happened, but I do remember somewhere around about this time frame, I experienced an angelic healing, and it was absolutely amazing. It was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. The universe connected me to a lady. As I say, once again, we were living in a remote area, and this lady had developed her clairvoyance and clairaudience, actually, and her angelic connection overnight, where she actually could see angels, she could hear them, she could see her guides and all of that kind of stuff. It was fascinating. Now, all I know is it was after I bought the deck on by Kimberly, okay, because we were connected via a third party. I just found out, it was like, here's a phone number for you. Oh, I just remembered as I was saying this, I was walking past a shop and this lady who was a clairvoyant walked out and put a phone number in my hand, and I looked at her and I said, what's that? She said, I'm being guided. So she was a psychic. She said, I'm being guided. She said, I'm told you need to call this lady. And I thought, what for? And she said, she's into angels. I said, but I'm not, right? Oh my God, honestly, I was so resistant. And she said, well, it doesn't matter what you say. The guides are saying that you've got to call her. And I thought, oh, whatever, okay. So I've called her up as requested and heard what her problem was, because I was used to being the helper, not the receiver, I've got to point out here. So I've called her up to see how I can help. And she says to me, I'm seeing angels, I'm having these things, and they're showing me stuff and I don't understand it. And they've told me I need to speak to somebody, that there's somebody here that can explain stuff to me. Now, as it turns out, what her guides and angels were trying to get her to do, because she was she'd only actually opened up within about the first 2 weeks. So she was still fine-tuning her communication. She is one of the most amazing communicators I've ever met. But what she needed help with was understanding things like the chakras, because if it can be difficult to explain this stuff sometimes, explaining the vision. So she would, let me think how to phrase this. Okay. So gifts have blown open. She doesn't understand. She's getting confused and distressed by what she's seen, which is actually the most beautiful stuff in the world. I didn't have the same gifts of vision that she did. I still don't at this point in time. But I had the understanding. So they connected us so that she could tell me what she was seeing and I could explain to her what they were doing. And the way we worked it out, because when she first started describing what she was saying, I would turn around and say to her, it sounds to me like they're balancing the chakras. And just ask your guides if that's right, yes or no, stuff like that. And she would say, he's saying yes, or they're nodding or they're giving you the thumbs up. So basically it became a shortcut means of her understanding the visions that she was seeing. I don't want to go too far overboard because this is becoming a long video. Just suffice to say that what we both shared, because we still hadn't met each other, this was all over the telephone, was we both shared the most amazing angelic healing experience. And it stays with you. Once you've had something like that, it stays with you. And it's so powerful that I ended up sharing it with people. So it's kind of funny the way the universe works as well. I went to her because I didn't feel I could share this technique and strategy without her consent, because it was a shared one. And I got told, share it with whoever you want. The guides are saying it's yours to do whatever with. But I will say that the two of us, what we did learn through our experience too, was that guides actually are always growing and learning and evolving as well, not just us in the human form, because the guides get choices as to what they want to do and what they don't. So that was an awakening for us. Now, where I'm going with this technique and strategy is I'm going to put up a healing video to help people go through this process, share it with you for those that are interested. But the funniest story, the reason why it's funny, is I did share it in about 2003 and 2004. I interacted with a whole heap of healers in England, and I shared this technique via email form with them. And it was just like, I gift this to you. You know what I mean? I am gifting you this healing strategy, but please don't charge for it, okay? Because this is the condition. We want people to be able to access healing in an affordable way. We want to enhance the quality of their life. So this is free. So it was please don't charge it. And it's actually one that I've had up in the past called Silver Rainbow Healing. I think I might have called it in the end Silver Violet Rainbow Healing Strategy. But anyway, where I'm going with this is some years later, I think it might have been about 2009, I'd hit a rock wall with my life, and I'd actually detached from my angels, if you like, for want of a better word. I was struggling, and I went and I got a psychic reading done, and in the process of it, after the reading, this lady sent me, of all things, this healing strategy that I had given to people all those years ago. It came back to me through the ethers from a psychic in the US. Very interesting. Anyway, where I'm going today is I'm coming back to it. I'm getting back involved, obviously on a high level of working with angels, because this is the first time that I've really gone in boots and all, putting up on the channel angelic energy. And I'm going to be putting a lot more stuff up here for people, okay? And I'm looking forward to strengthening my connection with the divine, because it's really been tested over the, say, last 10 years. But either way, I will for now say thank you very much. Love and light to you all. I'm more than happy to share my understandings with people. I love to see people grow. And once we've connected with the angels, it's just so powerful and so beautiful. I can't believe I cut myself off for a while. But anyway, such is life. Live and learn. See you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.